Welcome to the Echo Sportscast Spotlight. We have Mike McParland here, coach of the Nipissing Lakers. Welcome to the studio, Mike.
Dave, thank you very much.
I'm Dave Dale, and this is the co-host,
Paul McLean. We're happy to have you here. This is nice. So we'll get right into it. Our first interview of 2025, and we're here doing this interview on Wednesday, and you guys are getting set to face the Chinese team, a national team that's in on a tour of North America.
That's correct, Paul. We're playing tonight at 7. This will be broadcast a little bit after the game, but we're really looking forward to this. It's a nice little adventure for our players, and I'm a little bit surprised how excited they are to play this game. So it's kind of nice that they're having a little bit of something special and looking forward to it. And it should be a good preparation for our games coming up this weekend.
Could it be a distraction, or is it good prep?
No, it's good prep. I think after, in the university league, you shut down the first week of December because of exams, and you can't mandate practices. And at a certain date, around the 10th or the 12th of December, the players are allowed to leave and go home, and they're home for 3 weeks, and you're not sure what they're doing over the 3 weeks' time. And we've been back for about 8 days now, and I must say the guys have trained very, very hard and very well. But you still don't know what you have until you play. So it's been over a month since our last game, and this will kickstart us, I hope, for Queens on Friday night and Ontario Tech on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, you had a hard start to the season, but you look like at the tail end you won 3 out of 4, and they were close games, and all of the games were pretty close, eh?
Yeah, all the games have been really close. We were a little bit snake-bitten off the start. We lost 3 players due to reasons that were out of our control, whether they be academics or their own well-being or staying at home to care about their parents. So we ended up, before the season started, we lost 3 of our 9 top players, and then the first day of training camp, our top goal scorer hurt his knee and missed the first 8 weeks. And since he's been back, our fortunes have definitely turned around. On the positive side, other players have got to play quite a bit, and our goalies have really done well. And other than the last game before Christmas in Concordia, every game has been within a goal with 5 minutes to go. It could have went either way. The best team by far I've seen naturally is Concordia, who we played just before Christmas, and I see they went into Clarkson and won 5-1, which doesn't really happen too often, that a youth sport team goes down into to play the NCAA Division I teams and first of all win, but win by that margin was quite impressive.
Before we get into your hockey career, because I know you were a North Bay Trappers star and you went on to a European pro career, who was the top scorer that hurt his knee in the first part?
So Kyle Foreman missed the first part. He's centering our number 1 line now with Charles Farmer and Charles Johnson, and they were a real dominant line last year for us. Gave us secondary scoring and sort of taken over the mantle this year as the top line. And it was an unfortunate accident. The very first day of training camp, Eli Leifers lost his footing and came in and sort of low bridge sideswiped Kyle with his skate firmly planted in the ice, and there was nowhere for the knee to go, and he tore his cruciate ligament and missed 8 weeks.
Oh, ouch. And you mentioned the goalies keeping you in. I know they're 2 local boys. Let's talk about your local goalies. Yeah,
both guys have played real well. We have Zach Roy, who's from the Callander area and played in Hamilton with the Bulldogs in the OHL, and had a nice little career for himself, doing real well at school right now. He's in his 3rd season, and I think both goalies are relatively even. Our second goaltender, Reese Peru, also a North Bay kid that played in the Central Junior League with Pembroke, and this is his second year, and Reese has played real well as also, and this year he's actually taken a step and playing even better than he did last year. So on any given night, it really doesn't matter which one's in nets, because I think they're both more than capable, and they've both stolen games for us this year.
So you've got a long history, not only at Memorial Gardens, because we're going to talk about your days with the Trappers. You also have a very long history in youth sports, going back to I guess maybe we could lead into that after talking about the Trapper days, but University of Guelph, so in a player and in a coach role. But talk a little bit about what it was like. You and I have had some conversations about growing up in North Bay, playing hockey, West Ferris Arena, doing a little bit of reffing, so that like that was part of the responsibility and obligation. And even how, talk to me about, like, was it kind of rare to play indoors back then, or like not to date you too much, but what was the minor hockey like, and what was the lead in to be part of playing for the Trappers?
So I think that as a young player growing up, I can't believe how lucky I was now when I think back, being from West Ferris. At the time when I started, the West Ferris Community Center, it was the first year in use. It was natural ice. Back in 1964, I think we were the first game ever played on it. I still remember we got edged 8-0 in the first game that we played at 7:00 in the morning in December in natural ice in the West Ferris Arena. But what really was impressive and separated West Ferris from, at that time it was still West Ferris and North Bay. What separated us a little bit from the other areas in North Bay was the family environment, the volunteer work that the people in West Ferris did, and it was mandatory for the players, for your parents. They all had to be a part of it, whether it was working in the canteen or at one time West Ferris hosted a huge and a very well run and a very high caliber, at that time it was called the Atom Hockey Tournament. To be 10-year-olds that saw Ronnie Francis come through here as the GM of Seattle right now, as a young player. When we as players were old enough and got to the bottom and midget age at that time, they were called, we were mandated and obligated to act as linesmen for the 6 and 7-year-olds at 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. on Saturday mornings, and you'd have a senior referee with you, whether it be Norm Shillington or Leo Sheehan or Norm Arabach or Kenny Cullen. These guys were the head referees and full-on Ferris people that mentored you as a young person, and you were given back to West Ferris at that time, and our pay was a cup of hot chocolate when it was like -20 in the arena, and they wouldn't let you wear gloves ever, and you were frozen after you had to do 3 games. So it was given back at an early age, and at the same time, we were the envy. Eventually, the city and their minor hockey divided up into zones. There was South Zone, which was Ferris. There was East, North, and West. And we were the envy of the 4 zones, because through the volunteer efforts of not only the players but their parents, we were outfitted in quite nice equipment when we were playing as, at that time, A teams. Our colors were blue and white, and we had the helmets and the gloves and the pants to match, and we were really the only zone that was outfitted like that. And as we grew up, I kind of feel sorry for the kids nowadays, because as we grew up, we had those 4 zones plus Temiskaming and Sturgeon, and in my age group, everybody had their real good players, and a number of them played the NHL. In the East Zone, they had Graham Nicholson, and in Temiskaming had a Gasto Gingras, and Sturgeon had a Mo Mantha, and so every team was pretty competitive, and you didn't have to travel 350 kilometers to play a game. You played just in town locally, and if you advanced into the NOHAs, then you had to play a little bit. But we were very lucky that we had all these teams and all competitive teams right in the district, which naturally cut down on costs compared to what it costs nowadays for kids to play and to travel. But growing up in West Ferris, I can't say that I would have been luckier anywhere else than we were down in Ferris. We really were, we were treated well, and we learned how to work, and we learned how to volunteer, and we learned what community was. And I think it made everybody better. And it was a community effort at the time, without a doubt.
That's really cool. What years did you play for the Trappers?
I only played the 1 year for the Trappers, so I played it at that time until I was My midget age was over at that time. I was a 16-year-old. I started with the Trappers as a 16-year-old with some of the guys that have stayed here. There were only 2 local guys on the team at the time, myself and Tom Diggles. And some of the guys that came in and played on that team have since stayed in North Bay, like Ron Forte and Joey Omicelli and Brian Maley, and to a larger extent, Rod Stamler, who's just moved away recently. Those players all stayed here. I think they created quite a bond that year, 75, 76. It was the only year that the North Bay Trappers won the POHA championship, and we had quite a good team and quite a mix of age. We had a young Jimmy Fox at 15 that went on to play 10 or 11 years in Los Angeles and is still on their TV commentator role as a color commentator for probably 30 years now. He's been in LA his whole life and has had an outstanding career. And we had myself as a young player, and a young Jerry Ryu was here as a 16-year-old as well, played a little bit in the NHL. And then we had some old guys. We had a Pat Mitzi, who was a running back for the Sioux Steelers, coming in. He was a big, tough guy. And Brian Maley was come in from Haileybury, a big defenseman that played with Mitzi together. And we had a few other guys like Ron Forte that, for myself and my history, probably pound for pound, one of the toughest guys I've ever seen, because he just had absolutely no fear and would go after anybody. In fact, that year when we were playing Tier 2, we played 3 major junior teams in exhibition games, and we beat them all. And I remember the one night against the Kitchener Rangers, Ronnie Forte was fighting in warm-up, and it was an exhibition game. Whoa.
This is serious.
This is serious, yeah. So Ronnie was quite a character, and again, it was an experience. When you win, naturally, there's a special bond created amongst the players, and it was quite a run we had. We finished third, I believe, in the standings during the season, and in the opening round of the playoffs, we played the Wexford Raiders, who were a big, tough team to play against, and we beat them in 7 games. The next round, we played the Markham Waxers. We beat them in 7 games. And then the finals was an 8-point series that doesn't happen very often, and it went the 8 games. It was Game 7 was in North York. They finished first, and it was tied after 60 minutes, so you played a 10-minute straight overtime period that wasn't sudden death. So we scored to go ahead, and North York tied it up with like 6 seconds to go to force a Game 8 back in North Bay. And I'm not sure what there were 10 or 14 busloads of people that went to North York on the Saturday night. And they come right back and lined up at the Gardens when they got home at 4 in the morning. And I would like to say there was over 5,000 in that arena that day for Game 8. There was no glass around the boards. They're standing 5 deep around the board. So it was quite an experience for everybody to be a part of that, and then to win that 8th game 5-4. Every game was tight. It was pretty sensational, and the guys still have a tight bond. And I know that they've started to plan. I hate to say this, they're starting to plan a 50th year reunion from that title in 1976. So. It's always exciting when you win, and even more so when every game goes 7 games. So that was a great year for you. And from that point on, I thought I was going to be drafted to Kitchener. They talked pretty extensively to me, and there was some type of loophole that year that the Sudbury Wolves were allowed to protect one player from North Bay because we had an affiliation. And Jimmy Fox was underage, so he had to go in the draft, and he was drafted by Windsor and wouldn't report, so he played back in North Bay, but Sudbury ended up protecting me. And I remember when Barry McKenzie called, I said, I don't want to be protected by Sudbury. I'm that age, and I know who their centermen are, and I know, am I going to play there? Am I going to get enough minutes, enough points? I knew going to Kitchener, I'd probably slot in a little bit higher. And after the phone call, or at the end of the phone call, Barry McKenzie just said, "Mike, you're coming to Sudbury. We're not gonna put you back in the draft. We're going to protect you." So that was tough sledding at that time. They had Ron Duguay, who went on to have a real good NHL career and an outstanding player and guy. And another fellow named Wes Jarvis, who was a real good player and played a little bit in the NHL, and Danny McCarthy in at center that played a little bit also. So it was tough sledding that first year, but went into Sudbury and played pretty well, and we had a good team, and it was a learning and growing experience for sure. And went through that year and into the next year. I was in grade 13 at the time. It was the era of the Broad Street Bullies, and I was like 5'9", 160 pounds, not going anywhere in the NHL. So I thought I'd go to university, and Joe Drago was the general manager of the Wolves at the time. And this is, if you have her, there's always regrets for sure, but Joe Drago came to me and said, Mike, would you be interested in going to the Sioux? They've offered us a second-round draft choice for you. They need a number 2 center behind, at that time, Wayne Gretzky. And I thought, Joe, I'm not going anywhere. The deadline's coming up. I'm grade 13, and I'm probably looking at going to university next year. If I don't have to go in the trade, if you'd let me stay, I'd rather stay. And you think back now, what a thrill it would have been to play with Gretzky, just having played against him and seeing what he could do as the youngest guy, the smallest guy, the slowest guy, the weakest guy on the ice, and he could dominate every night that he wanted to. So that year was his only year in junior, and he ended up tying Bobby Smith in the scoring race as the top scorer in the OHL as a kid, and he had an outstanding world championship that year. The World Juniors, I believe, as a 16-year-old, he led that in scoring as well. So, it might have been an opportunity missed out on if I had something to take back.
Quite a traveling circus to go around and see. Yeah, but it's amazing to hear the stories about like just how well followed the teams were. I mean, those buses of teams going down to watch it and everything. Like, it's just a different time.
Oh, it was a different time. North Bay, like that year, it rocked. It really did. And I was away in Europe naturally when the Centennials won their OHL championship, but I could imagine it was very similar. And for us at that time, having the Trappers graduate from the old NOHA that used to have Sudbury, Sioux, Espanola, and Garson. It was a pretty formidable league on their own at the time, and remember seeing the passion and the play and the players in that league, because my dad was the timekeeper at the rink for like 45 years, so he would drag me along as a 5, 6, 7-year-old. I'd be at the rink all the time, and would always be very impressed, and it left a great impression on me, the old NOHA, to see the hockey history and having experienced it, and then be part of moving to the southern branch to play in what was called the POHA at that time. The joy and the ambiance that we created in the city, and the passion from the fans that were in the city, it was probably one of the highlights that I've ever experienced playing. And to be from North Bay was that little bit extra, of a proud moment that Tommy Nichols and I could share, being the only 2 North Bay guys here.
Huh. Who was your coach for the big championship?
That was Butch Turcotte.
Yeah, that's what I thought, right?
Butch was the coach back then, and back in those days there was no assistant coach. It was one person running the bench, and we had Stevie Boyle was our trainer, and a couple of young guys helping out, and it was a skeleton crew, but we had some good executives. Danny Wilkes, the late Danny Wilkes, was the head of scouting and did an outstanding job, and Andre Rochefort at the time was the owner of the team, and Teddy Meggs was one of the administrators of the team, and Tommy Aarons helped out in a little bit more of a distant position, but a lot of good people, and Wayne Antler, I can't forget him. He looked after the guys too, and was on the executive and found guys jobs with the O&R back at that time for the older guys. So it was a real good crew, and everything really worked out optimally. That's for sure.
Is that Meggs guy that's in the Hall of Fame room all the time?
Teddy's at all our games.
I talked to him once in a while.
Yeah, hockey's in his blood. It's been there his whole life. After that, Trappers left. I know that he went back and sort of helped the midget AAA team for a while as well. He was always around there. Yeah, he's a heart and souler for sure.
Yeah. What did Butch Turcotte teach you about coaching?
maybe some of Butch's antics wouldn't be allowed nowadays. I'm not sure, but he was pretty passionate, that's for sure. And there's no question Butch always wanted to win, and he pushed the cards in there all the time and tried to motivate the guys as best he could to give their absolute best and play fearlessly. And Butch did a real good job for us for sure.
How would you describe your style of coaching?
Well, I've changed over the years, and I think you have to change. A lot of terminology and acts that you did. I've been coaching now over 30 years that you did when you began coaching. Nowadays wouldn't go over. The players nowadays, when you're doing something, they want to know why you're doing it and how it's going to help them, and what advantage it gives us as a team, and why is it tactically better that way than this way. So it's much more cerebral now than it used to be, for sure. And I'm sure that if I ranted and raved and yelled at kids nowadays the way I did in the other days, they'd quit. They'd quit, and it's just different times. So as a person, as a coach, you have to be flexible, and you have to be willing to change and modernize yourself constantly also, and keeping up. And I think helping out with the coaching certification program always keeps me current and updated in the newest methods, and at the same time it reinforces your values and your foundation, hearing the same ideas as what has been used in the past, and knowing you're on the right track more or less. We all need that.
I like to call it maturity.
Yeah. Yeah, that too.
Can you pin down any time when coaching sort of started to be on the radar, and that's something that you thought would be in the future? Like, you went from Sudbury. How did you make the decision to go to Guelph? What was the draw to that program?
So
you had a lot of success there.
I had actually committed to York to go to school, and the coaches at York called me in July and said that they wouldn't be going back, and they said, therefore, my commitment's no longer valid. You're free to go wherever you want. So at that time, who turned into a great mentor for me was the coach at University of Guelph, Bud Flusewich. For some reason, when he came to Sudbury, he did not get the memo that I was in grade 13, so I really didn't talk to him at that time. And I decided on Labor Day weekend to go to Guelph as more or less a walk-on for him. And went to Guelph on a team that the year before didn't make the playoffs, and we went on to win the OUAs in my first season at Guelph, and the next year we won again. So it was back-to-back wins at Guelph, and with Bud, he was probably one of the first coaches to allow me to have a large leadership role right from day one when I got to Guelph. And it was, through the opportunity that he gave me, I was able to play a lot. And actually, the first year at school when we won the championship, I led Canada in scoring in the U Sport League, and the next year repeated that. Maybe I didn't lead Canada, but the OUA in scoring the second year and winning the championship again. You have a bond with all those players. Opened the door for a couple possibilities and opportunities. Not only did we win the OUA 2 years in a row, back then overage juniors in Major A wasn't a thing like it is now, but it was in Tier 2, and they had a loophole rule in Guelph or in the Tier 2 league that you could sign a university player before January 10th, and he could come and play for you when the university season was over. And the Guelph, at that time, they were the Guelph Platers, and they already had a strong team in first place, and they added 7 university guys for the playoffs. They just marched through the Ontario League and right out to the Centennial Cup in Prince Albert, where was fortunate enough to meet Mr. Diefenbaker. We stayed at the same hotel that he was in, and that was his riding, so we were there at that time that he was in his constituency, and had the honor to meet him with the Guelph Platers. And the second year, the same thing happened. At the end of the season, was able to sign at that time with the Cambridge Hornets, who had a real good senior team.
Yeah.
we went to the Allen Cup final in Spokane a month before Mount St. Helens erupted, and I tell you, you wonder if that was the right decision, because when we played in Spokane, every night was a benches empty brawl. Every game was your life was in your hands, and not being a big guy and not being a tough guy, your life was in your hands. And every game was a 1-goal game. We had a goalie, Dave Tatarin was his name. He played in the WHA with the Toronto Toros. He was unbelievable how good he was. But they would two-hand him in the face every game. They'd just go up and whack him. It was like slap shot. They'd just cross-check him or slosh him right across the mask, and on it would be, with the Peace brothers and the Wells brothers going at the guys from Spokane. It was, today people would have 10 and 15 game suspensions today,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was that was
The Wild Wild West.
Yeah, that was time to realize, hey, there's got to be hockey at a better level than this somewhere else. And that's when I took the opportunity to go to Europe, and everything just, you have to have a little bit of luck as well. And it got better every year. You played a real big game at the right time, or led the league at the right time, and you were able to move on and move up, and ended up playing and coaching for 25 years in Switzerland. The only problem with that was it went too fast.
Yeah.
That's the only problem. So
That's a great story.
Yeah.
What a life.
My kids were quite excited. I showed Paul today. They were over in Switzerland visiting their mom right now, and they went by the arena in Rapperswil where I played 4 years, and they have a big picture of me on their wall of fame. So they thought that was pretty cool, seeing that over in Rapperswil when they were there. They sent me a picture back, so they enjoyed that.
And so I remember you've told me, was the Dutch League the first one?
Dutch League was the first. Dutch League was. It was the city I lived in was scary as well. It was funny. Here I am. I'm naive from North Bay. I'm 22 years old. I get picked up at the airport in Amsterdam by the president at that time of ITT International. Computers aren't even really a thing.
Yeah.
This guy picks me up in this big Mercedes. We're not even on the Autobahn yet. We're on the ramp going 135 kilometers an hour. I don't think I'd ever been in a car that went that fast. We're not even on the highway yet. I'm going to die. And we're driving this fast out to Assen, up in the north of Holland. And that summer before I got there, people have to really reach back into their encyclopedia. But the summer before I got there, a group of terrorists took a Dutch train hostage just outside of Assen, and the Dutch sent their military in and just machine gunned everybody. Took the train back, and it really created tensions in the town I lived in that year. It was not real safe to walk around at night alone. It was a little bit of racism involved, both sides. So it was an experience for a 22-year-old coming from North Bay, for sure.
But you had all that experience in Spokane, right? So.
Not on the streets. Not on the streets. But I got through it that year. Again, we played. I'm so fortunate. We played Salzburg, Austria, in an exhibition game, and had a nice game. And the coach wanted me to keep in contact, tell them how the season went in Holland, and I did. And things worked out that I was able to move from Holland down to Salzburg, Austria, which is without a doubt one of the top 10 cities in the world to live in. And, if anything, I was probably too young at that time to really enjoy the cultural aspects of it. But Salzburg was a great place to play. And again, we had good players and a good team. And from there, we were bordering Switzerland, and when we played in Falkirk, which actually is right on the border of Switzerland, there was some people from Switzerland at a game, and again had a good showing. And the people in Switzerland said, "Geez, we'd really like you to come to." My first stop in Switzerland was Rapperswil. Come and play, and we'll go from there. So, I said to my agent, I said, "Is it good for me to go to Rapperswil? It's a second division team. It's not the top division that I've been in." And he said, they're willing to pay you more than some NHL guys are getting when they're going to the A-League. And again, if anything, there's a regret that might have been one right there. because you sort of get labeled. You go in, and even though you're one of the top scorers every year, you're classified by the Swiss as a B League import, and nobody really gives you a chance. Even though I had the great opportunity to play a couple years in the Spangler Cup and with DeVos and do well in the Spangler Cup, and you still never got that chance in the A League. So that was, if there was a slight regret, that would have been one of them. But at the same time, having the opportunity to play, first of all, in Switzerland, then be invited by DeVos to play in the Spangler Cup at that time with the ex-coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Ron Wilson, was playing in DeVos at the time, and Greg DeBerge was one of the pickups for a local guy also for the Spangler Cup team that year, and Del McCourt was on the team and was the first overall draft choice to Detroit, the NHL. He was one of the guys they added as well, so having the opportunity to play in the Spangler Cup was pretty special. Like they just said, I saw some of the games this past Christmas on TV, and they were going on about how the town rocks. But when that Spangler Cup's on, it does rock all the time, and it was pretty special with the crowds and the people and the atmosphere and the level of play, and it was quite enjoyable to be a part of that a couple of times as well. And from there, I got real lucky. I got injured in practice. I got a slap shot in the face that caused me to lose my teeth, and developed an allergic reaction to the material they used in the teeth, and contracted nasal polyps and asthma from the shock. And at 28 years old, couldn't really breathe to play at the level that they expect from an import at that time in Europe. And my agent said, "Listen, Mike, I have a team that would take you on as a coach next year." Without any experience, I'd had my certification done because I thought I may want to be a coach. And I said, "Well, yeah, I'd like to try it." And took on a job in Chur in the east side of Switzerland, beautiful area, not far from DeVos, second division team. And half the guys on the team are older than me that first year. And we ended up winning the championship, so it was a nice start. And it carried you for a long time, and ended up coaching 20 years in the Swiss B League and the A League over there, and having the opportunity to be a head coach at Team Canada one year in one of those international satellite tournaments in Slovakia, and coached with Dave King, and became good friends with the late Brad McCrimmon, who used to come over and help our team out quite a bit. And Mike Polino, worked with all these guys over the years coaching in Team Canada, and had the pleasure of working with Scott Salmon, who's the Vice President of Hockey Canada, helping put the Spangler Cup teams together while I was there with Sean Simpson, who also later became the national team coach. So it's been a tremendous ride, and I couldn't change very much, that's for sure. You always have some regrets. I know that there were two instances. One, I was coaching a team that was supposed to be the Rumpelstiltskin team of the league, and picked last by every press person in Switzerland. We ended up finishing second, and there was twice during that year. Once we beat Rapperswil, and that's where I had played previously, and he called me at 7 a.m. after we beat them the night before, 7-3, and said, "We want you to quit where you are and come to work in Rapperswil." And at that time, they had Boris Mikhailov as the coach, and they were willing to fire Boris Mikhailov and have me move in. And the second time in the same year, we beat DeVos, who hosts the Spangler Cup at home, 3-0. And the president came to my apartment after the game and said, "We'd like you to come to DeVos." And both times I said, "Well, I have this contract where I am, and I can't leave. I couldn't leave." And now you think back and go, "Well, maybe you should have."
You told me once about, it sounds to me from your stories like the Swiss League might be the most cutthroat coaching position in all of hockey. Was it they would post who was going to get fired right before Christmas, like get a for sale sign on your lawn?
So they have a national paper over there in the German side called the Blick, and they're sensational. And at that time, there was a journalist single-handedly could almost get a coach fired through his articles. because the owners of these teams at that time were owned by one man. It was a president, and he funded and he paid. And if somebody got in his year and didn't like you were probably gone in about 3 days. So the Blick would put out every Christmas, they'd have the sports page, and they'd have all the coaches from the National League teams on as a Christmas tree bulb.
Yeah.
And they say which ball is going to fall from the tree first after Christmas, stuff like this. And they actually put out a yearly guide for the leagues as well, and they rank which coach is likely to get fired first, second, third, stuff like this. It's critical, and it happened to me in Lausanne. I was coaching in Lausanne. We just went up. We were in the A League and had an outstanding year as runner-up for Coach of the Year in the Swiss League, and I was coaching with Dave King in Zurich. And after the game, all the press are around me, and they're talking to me after the game with Team Canada because it's a national team break. They go, "Oh, Mike, did you hear you're getting fired tonight in Lausanne?" And I'm in Zurich. I'm going, "No, I didn't really think of getting fired in Lausanne. We're the middle of the pack team, which for a team that's relatively new in the first division, usually there's a little bit of patience. But over there, somebody gets in the president's ear, and it's done." So,
And they think journalism a little cutthroat now.
that the newspapers could run that league, I'm telling you. Since there was the Blick in the German part and the Le Matin in the French part, they were both they could both be very influential.
And then to get the call to come back when Nipissing was starting up that program, and did you ever have the Centennials were gone at that point, like North Bay probably, other than coming back in the summer to visit, right? Because you they kept a place and would come back because it was still home. But the idea of coaching here, was that ever on a radar up until that point?
They had approached me and said, they were thinking about putting a team together, and if they did, would you put in an application? And that went on a couple summers, and nothing was really that official yet. I did think at that time, after being 28 years in Europe, maybe it was time to come home and reconnect with my friends, because I still have a lot of good friends here in North Bay, and still to this day do. And decided, I'll apply for the job, and if I get it, I would probably take it. And originally, there was a lot of fanfare and promise for the team and the situation, and the niche that was available for the university hockey team at that time, with the vacancy of no major A team naturally. And it was what was advertised the first few years for sure. And then with the battalion coming into the city, and naturally to have a major A team in your city is a feather in your cap for sure, with the way they're marketed and run like a business. They came in with full fanfare and really put a little bit of a nail into the university team. The 1,800 average attendance has dropped down to 200-300, and now we're like every other university. It's funded more by the university for sure, and part of our job up there now is naturally fundraising also to make sure that the program stays viable and competitive. But those first few years were real good, and the opportunity to grow Nipissing on the map was really great. And all of a sudden, it was a little bit of a pin put in the balloon. And
well, up until that point, Nipissing had soccer and volleyball, and I think the volleyball was probably still even OCAA at that time. So your presence in that team
soccer,
was really came in and did put Nipissing on the map in terms of where sports go. And I still remember, I have a great picture actually of my daughter Rory at the stairs that you come up behind the benches, just kind of holding, there's a little metal thing there and just watching. But it was a packed house, that game against Queens. I can't remember if was it a shootout win?
A shootout, yeah. The very first game was a shootout. We were down 4-0 after 2 periods and came back and made it 4-4. And we don't scrape the ice, and our guys were all sitting. I remember still, it's a shootout, but we've played in their end the whole third period, so it's full of snow. And in our end, there's no snow. And we went down, and the puck was rolling on all our guys, and they couldn't get a good shot. And Queens came down, and it was ting off the post. The puck lied smooth.
Yeah.
They could get it all, and we unfortunately lost that in a shootout. But it was quite incredible when you think back to the very first exhibition game against University of Ottawa. The rink was sold out for an exhibition game. It was Pink the Rink night that night. There was over 3,000 fans, and an exhibition game against University of Ottawa that we lost 3-2 in overtime. And that was great for everybody to show that we could compete, and we would be able to compete in that very first year, and to get on a run where we'd won 6 in a row. We're ranked in the top 10 in the country. It was quite an incredible start for sure, and like I said, it was promising, and it did open the door for other varsity athletics at Nipissing, which was good for the university. Any university that can offer sports as well as academics, I think that entices a different student and additional students as well. So I think that it was a win-win. Us getting off to that good a start, it really opened the door and helped Nipissing grow. As you see, the athletic center doubled in size since we've started. So, there are positives, and it still is an avenue. Our life just got tougher with the major junior kids being able to go to NCAA. Now all of a sudden you've lost that base of recruiting opportunity. Almost all of the overage kids have already committed to go NCAA. So that'll change the landscape on how, especially the big schools like UNB and Alberta recruit. Now they'll be in the same ponds as Nipissing and Laurier. It's not just the major A guys they're going to be taking anymore.
Well, this has been really cool. We are running out of time almost, and I want to wrap it up with a positive note. But I want to ask: did you ever get jealous of the Lady Lakers getting all that limelight recently? Well, you guys are in the really tough division, and
well, it's a little bit different. They have other opportunities right now with these Keep the Girls in Canada program. It's a pilot program that they've been entitled to some little bit of extra incentives to get girls in. But it's good for the school that our girls team do well as well. So it's good for everybody.
what would you like to talk about in the last minute of our conversation here? And I think we're going to have you back in again to talk some more hockey.
Well, I've been fortunate to have grown up in North Bay. If there's a wish I had, I guess when we were growing up, I wish we would have had more arenas with regulation-size ice surfaces. I think that's hurt development for players for the last 40 years. It may not sound like much, but when you grow up playing on different size ice surfaces or smaller size ice surfaces with different angles and how to play the angles and how to play the game, and you change, you don't realize it's different until you can figure it out. It's different, and there's got to be a reason. There's got to be a reason why we haven't been able to produce more NHL players here out of North Bay. When I look at a center like Thunder Bay, the number of NHL guys they've put in, or they've helped develop into NHL players. I know the city's a little bit bigger than North Bay, but I think North Bay is more than capable, and there's a lot of good people that do work in the hockey circles in North Bay. I'm glad that we are getting more regulation-sized arenas. Even bringing the battalion in had reconstructed the Memorial Gardens ice surface into regulation size, and with the new arena being built, there's a couple more ice surfaces that are regulation sized. I think the kids coming up will benefit from that, and I'm glad for that. If I had a wish, I wish there was an arena up in the north end close to our campus that we could get some of our students out and interested in cheering on the men's and ladies Lakers teams. I think that would be really great. I do believe we would get the support for a student to get to the Memorial Gardens, or perhaps in the future to the new arena down in Omichelle. that is a chore. So, that was something that I would wish for if I could say something or have a wish.
Oh yeah. Well, it's the best hockey. I enjoy it very much. I think being able to sell it and getting people out to watch it is another thing. But I always recommend it to people, and everybody says when they go, "Oh yeah, that's a different
great
league.
hockey,
That's great hockey," and they're missing out when they don't get to see it.
I appreciate that, and it is affordable. To bring a family in that. I know kids under 12 are free, and seniors have a nice discount. I think an adult ticket's only $15, so it's, it is a good night out for a family for sure, and it's enjoyable. And we do try to get out in the community. We've run the Timbits for the last 8 or 9 years. We're running it the last couple of years, but we've been involved with the Timbits the last 8 or 9 years. From Scott, Kyle, and Bob.
Fournier.
Fournier, we're helping out, and we help out with the North Stars. They're developmentally challenged teams. We just had our exhibition game with them last Sunday. I think we lost both, but I know a lot of fun was had by all, and I know that we have other players going out with different teams, helping them out as well in coaching. And in the past, we've had players helping out in the soup kitchen, and the players do try to get involved in the community, and I do know that the kids like it here, because last year we had 10 of our out-of-town kids stay all summer. They found jobs, they stayed, they worked, and they had a slow pitch team they put together, and we skated a couple times a week. So they do like North Bay, and I can remember that in our early years we had one guy that was a little bit of a tough guy and a rowdy guy, and he told me after the fact, he said, when I came here after winning the Memorial Cup, I'm going, what the hell am I going to have in North Bay? What's up there for me? There's nothing there. He stayed 4 years, and when he was leaving, he was crying because he loved it here so much.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Who was that?
That was Connor O'Donnell.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Refereed a little bit in the NHL. And yeah.
No, I mean, it's an amazing group of kids that have gone through, and I mean, just the number that are now teachers and police officers and firefighters,
lawyers. We have 7 lawyers. We have a Crown attorney on the East Coast. We have our first medical student at McGill right now, going through to be a doctor. So almost 30 police officers. So the 10 or 12 CPAs. The programs have been great at Nipissing, and the opportunity for these players. We put 30 guys in pro all over North America and Europe since they've graduated from us. So opportunity for different avenues is definitely there for the kids as well. And, again, it's what you put into it. And, we've been lucky. We haven't had any problems. And this year's group is a great group of kids right now.
Well, and you're not going to say this about yourself, so let me do it for you and say thank you on behalf of everybody in hockey, because of the amount of work you do as well in terms of helping to develop coach. So I know you were working with Jacob Brown in those NOHA camps, but in terms of mentoring coaches and doing the high performance coaching and a mentor and evaluating, I mean, it's amazing to give back that way, and you have such a wealth of knowledge that to be able to share that, everyone's very lucky. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Paul and Dave, for having me on today. It was great. And I don't usually talk about myself like that, I'll be honest, but it was great to come and share some stories with you.
Yeah, well, it's great. It's great to have you here because you're a pro, right? And you carry yourself like one, and you treat people like that. So we're lucky to have you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, you've just heard another Echo Sportscast Spotlight interview, and we've been talking to Mike McParland, coach of the Nipissing Lakers hockey team. They're playing tonight at 7 o'clock against Queens, and tomorrow at 4 o'clock Saturday against Ontario Tech. So get out there and cheer them on. You're going to see some great hockey.